Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Global Desi Women. I'm your host, Arti Solanki, joined by my incredible co host. Today is Bhavna Shelley and Bhavna Luthra. And I have the honor of welcoming our guest today is Aditi Bhandari. And we're thrilled to talk about everything about branding. So, what it means, bring a big brand expertise to emerging consumer brands. We welcome you, Aditi, and we appreciate your time and all your insights about branding as they see women. I think being an entrepreneur, we all struggle about branding. Like we were just talking off off the podcast, we were just talking about it. But today's topic, breaking into the market, building brands, strategies, and success in the competitive world. Again, Aditi, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, and just to start out, I want to I want to actually go back to the start, right? Because you just started your business earlier this year, fresh, and you have a lot of experience in the marketing world. So, what you know, you have an impressive background with the over 10 years, I think you said, with the you've worked with brands like Target, PepsiCo. So what inspired you to make the leap from corporate to founding Blur?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll take a step back and kind of walk through my corporate background just so people understand the diverse marketing experience I've had. And I think especially unique as a Desi woman who went to college. Now I think like even in just 10 years, the generation has shifted. And I'm so excited to see many more Desis going into fields like marketing and the arts and all of that. But even just like whenever I applied to college like 15 years ago, I guess at this point, it was still relatively different, like majoring in marketing. So I guess I'll start there with college. So I
Hmm.
went to University of Texas in Austin and got a degree in marketing there. And I had known lifelong that I wanted to be a marketer. And the passion really started when I was in high school. I was working, a retail job at American Eagle at the mall. And I was fascinated by all the things that came from American Eagle corporate. Hey, put this sign in the store. This is the campaign we have going on. These are the sales, the customer service, like all of that really exposed me to marketing as a field.
Hmm.
And I was lucky that my parents were very supportive of me going in that field. I did always have artistic interests as a child. Like I liked drawing, I liked art, but marketing is, the Desi parents kind of dabbling dream because it's artistic, but it's still in the business world. You can still make good money doing it.
Right.
I think they were happy about that part. But yeah, so I majored in marketing with the full support of my parents. I think that was super important. I, after undergrad, moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota to work for Target. And that is another thing that I think I'm really grateful for. And again, I think times have changed in the last like 15 years since I went to college. But again, my parents were very supportive and like, hey, get out of the state, move to a different city, do what's right for your career. Because doing a marketing role at Target out of undergrad just sets you on a different trajectory than, staying within Houston or staying within Houston is where I
Mm.
grew up or staying within Texas. So worked for Target for 4 years across a bunch of different marketing roles. I started off in consumer insights. So that's more learning about, hey, did you see this ad? Did you like this ad? Was this for Target? More consumer insights about marketing.
Mm.
And moved around a couple different roles from there and landed in media. So even just within the 4 years, I got a good exposure to different aspects of marketing. But what I decided that I really wanted to do was marketing strategy. And the
Mm.
roles that I was applying to at the time all said MBA preferred, MBA required. So I figured it's time to go get an MBA. So I went to Berkeley for my MBA, majored in marketing there as well, the concentration that I picked. interned for PepsiCo and then started full-time working for PepsiCo. So again, I'm giving you all this career history just so you can kind of see like
Wow.
marketing is not just something I do, but it's a passion and something I truly, truly love and a big part of my background and career.
Yeah.
At PepsiCo, I'm not sure if listeners may be familiar, but PepsiCo is a massive food and drink conglomerate. So obviously they own Pepsi soda, but they also own Cheetos, Doritos, Tostitos, Ruffles, Popcorners, Smart Food Popcorn, Stacy's
Mhm.
pita chips, like basically anything that is a chip that has been around for more than 10 years is owned by PepsiCo. So um, at PepsiCo, I got to work on a couple different projects. The first project I joined working was launching a brand new brand from scratch. And
Mm.
that is what really tickled the startup bug in me is even though I'm at this big company, I'm working on gathering the insights. How should we make a new brand from scratch? What should we call it? What should the target audience be? What should the flavor be? And that was so fun.
Yeah.
After that role, I moved on to marketing Cheetos, which is 75-year-old brand. I'm sure everyone knows it, loves it, maybe hates it because it leaves marks everywhere, but I got to work on the Cheetos brand. So it was a stark difference of, okay, now there's this established brand that has a big budget, big teams, big spend, big everything, big impact. And those two experiences combined made me feel like I could take this big brand experience and apply it to emerging and startup brands. So that was maybe the background catalyst of what I'm doing now, which I left PepsiCo earlier this year, like you said, to start my own consultancy for emerging brands.
Bravo, very impressive, honestly. And so
Yeah.
I'm guessing that working with these big brands, you've, like you said, you worked into different aspects of advertising, marketing. Was there a particular type of market? Because marketing is, when we say marketing, it's a broad, industry because you could be, there's social media marketing, there is, like SEO marketing or whatever, there are so many different kinds that it's hard for people like me. I'm like, okay, when somebody says, okay, what kind of marketing do you do? And I'm like, okay, I'm just posting on social media if that's considered marketing. So was there a particular field of marketing that really kind of you loved it, or kind of you felt like, okay, this is my niche, or, this is my expertise on?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say it's a field, but I think the core strategy of marketing is my bread and butter now and what I help startups and growing brands do. But when I say strategy, even more focus than that is how do you connect with your end consumer? To me,
Mm,
that is the key to any brand, like whether you are a solopreneur that's offering a specific service in like the healthcare industry, or whether you are launching a whole brand that's supposed to end up at Target or Walmart or something like that. If you can't connect deeply with your consumer and understand what they need and understand how to talk to them, everything else, SEO, social media, all of that falls flat.
yeah, yeah, agreed. Ladies, you have any questions for Aditi?
So what's the best way nowadays is to the consumer? What's the most used or most user friendly or more suitable approach for people in our community to get to their heart and soul for whatever the business brand it is? What do you think the users are more using?
Yeah, I think it's taking a step back, and I usually coach my brands into doing a competitive audit. And it's actually really interesting because when you think about competitors, people tend to think about their specific category. So I'll give an example of a startup I was coaching earlier this year. They were launching a functional beverage brand that's rooted in Ayurveda. And the first initial product was rose water themed because rose water is very cooling, it's very calming. For certain parts of your menstrual cycle, it's beneficial to have, those effects. So that was kind of the targeted product. And so when I asked the founder, hey, who are your main competitors?
Mhm.
The response was just other functional beverage brands, right? But you have to think about when would someone drink this and what else is in their option set, right? So if
Mm,
someone is drinking this after work or before bedtime, you have to think that maybe chocolate, wine, bath bombs, anything that you would do to unwind or de-stress, meditation, all of these things are competitors to your product, right? So it's not just like really understanding your consumer, it's really putting yourself in their shoes and what is their entire journey of how it gets to your product or service.
Interesting, interesting. So can you share about what is Blur's vision and
Yeah.
what type of consultancy you focuses on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So it definitely took a lot of product market fit finding this year for me. So I can walk you guys a little bit through that. When I started the consultancy in January, I thought that I was just going to do marketing for startups. Like it was pretty broad, but also, I guess, specific in the sense that it was startups. What I quickly learned over time is for marketing in both startups, that when I talk to brands or startups about marketing, their head usually goes to, hey, I need a Facebook ad. Hey, I need a SEO on my website. And I quickly discovered that I need to take a step back and find what my specific specialty is. So that is kind of how I pared back the strategy focus. So it's that plus like what I personally enjoy, right? Like you have to wake up and love what you're doing every day. And I personally am not super excited doing graphic design, but if someone wants to talk strategy with me, I could talk your ear off. So that was that fit. The other thing about the startups is while I love working with founders and love the energy and how fast paced everything is, fiscally, it's not completely sustainable to only work with startups because they don't have the big budgets. So I've been now trying to balance that out with, I enjoy my passion for startups, but I try to balance it out with more established clients who can pay bigger projects. I mean, because at the end of the day, just to be transparent, is you're in business to make money. And if you can wake up every day and love your job and it doesn't feel like working, that's great. But at least in the beginning, for the most part, you are trying to make money. So.
Yes, absolutely. That's the rewarding part of working, right? That you get paid.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So Aditi, oftentimes marketing and advertisement is kind of gotten mixed up in the environment. Like, if you have a business, you think about, oh, marketing means I gotta put an ad out there, just like what you said, right? But what you're referring is it takes a whole lot more than just putting your product's ad somewhere, because that's not going to bring the consumer attention to you. You need that background story on what your product is. And can you describe a little bit more about the differences between the advertising and really what marketing stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. And even in school, there are two separate majors. But yeah, like outside of the discipline or like the academic, being in class, people do conflate them a lot. I would say marketing is more the desk job of, there's so many aspects of marketing that people often forget that they are part of marketing. So pricing is a really big one. A big role of marketing is to figure out what is the correct price to charge such that we are competitive in the marketplace, but we're also being very profitable and our margins are good. Pricing also trickles down to, okay, what are our costs and what are we selling at and how can we protect that margin? That's where branding comes in. If you have a strong brand, you'll have higher margins because you're justifying charging more above cost, right? Because of your brand. Luxury goods is like the very low-hanging fruit example. The other parts of marketing that people often don't think that they're part of marketing. I talked about pricing, but also packaging, distribution. Where are you selling? If you have a natural foods product, it's going to have a very different consumer appeal if you're putting it on shelf at Aldi or Walmart versus if you're putting it on shelf at Whole Foods or Sprouts, right? So even like distribution is a big part of marketing. Advertising is, I would say, the creative part. So advertising is, the super innovative or emotional advertisements that happen. So I would say advertising is more like what the consumer sees, and marketing is more behind the scenes, what's happening in Excel and PowerPoint.
The boring stuff, right?
Yeah, no, but I love it.
So is it difficult to market, to learn to do more marketing around consumer products that are tangible versus the services? Like, do you find it, because you must have had to market yourself being a service provider as a consultant, right? So what are the challenges between strategizing the marketing for actual consumer products versus the services?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I realized I didn't fully answer the question earlier. So Blur now focuses, I said my product market fit was marketing for startups, but now it is strategy for consumer brands. So it's any brand that is being sold directly to a consumer. To your question, between goods and services, there's definitely tactical differences, but at a strategic level, it's the same, right? You're looking at your landscape and your competitive set and category. You're looking at your audience and what matters to them, what's their pain point you're solving, and how do you show up? And then you're looking at your value proposition, why your brand, why your company, why your product or service. So I think at the strategic level, it's the same. I think where they get very different is your consumer touch points, right? If you're selling a food product, your packaging is very important. How it looks 10 feet away on shelf, how it looks when the consumer is looking at it on shelf, what's written on the back when they flip it around. And, that whole experience is something that you don't have in services. Whereas in service, a lot of things that matter is after sale. So after someone's worked with you, are you following up with them? Are you asking them for a referral? Are you asking them for feedback? That's something that, Cheetos is not going to come ask you, hey, did you like the bag of Cheetos you bought? So there's many tactical things that are different, but I think from a strategy point of view, it's pretty much the same.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very nice.
So despite the challenges, what have been some of the highlights or most rewarding moments for starting Blur? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you caught me really early in my journey, but I think something that was immediately noticeable for me was just I loved my job at PepsiCo, like loved it. And I think, that's like rare to say working for a corporate brand, but the amount of internal motivation I have every day, I that has been amazing. I have seen myself grow much more confident. I've always been like extroverted and I'm, good at like talking to people or whatever, but I have never been good at networking. I have never been good at public speaking or talking about myself. And just in the past 10 months of starting this company, the visible differences that I notice and what other people have noticed that know me well has been really rewarding to see. And then three, I would say the work ethic and persistence. I'm not someone who's like grind, hustle, stay up till 1 a.m. and never sleep. I'm not that person. But I think the first two things combined of my confidence and, everything that I said, I think that has really pushed me to be more persistent. So that's been really rewarding as well. And it's your own thing. I think that is why a lot of people start businesses, is because you're not reporting to somebody anymore.
yeah,
I think starting a business for like flexibility could be a reason, but to me, that's like the wrong reason.
yeah,
Because if you're starting your own business in order to have more flexible working hours, you may not have passion for the actual business that you're doing, right? And so I think the passion part's really important.
yeah. So between getting married and starting your business, was this the perfect time for you to take this leap?
Yeah, so I got married last fall, end of September, and I started the business in January. And it wasn't like I didn't plan it out like that, honestly, but it worked out that way. And a big reason for starting the consultancy was honestly like very tactical. Like return to office was a big one. So PepsiCo actually returned to office in September, along with a lot of the other big companies that did that. And I had gotten married and moved to Houston, and PepsiCo was in Dallas. So that was like kind of the catalyst of it all.
Mm,
That kind of pushed me to start this business sooner than I would have. But I think getting married was really, really good timing for two reasons in between for starting the business. One, financially, like my husband, I know he wouldn't, even if we were just dating or engaged, I knew he wouldn't like run away and leave me stranded with bills. But when you're married, there's a different level of commitment where, hey, I got you, like financially, like I got us, like we have this, we're doing this as a team. And then just morally,
Yeah.
like by morally, I mean like moral support wise, it was really good to have someone by my side. I'm very blessed to have a good constellation of close friends and family and parents that, are very supportive of this endeavor. But if it's like 11 p.m. and it's been a month where you haven't closed anything and you have no revenue and you're emailing people and no one's replying, and it's 11 p.m. and you're going to bed and you're crying, it's your husband who's in bed with you who can be there, because you can't, it's different. And so I think like having my husband by my side throughout this journey as like our first big adventure together was amazing.
That's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And I know um, when I started my business, and I know how it feels because it's like, oh my God, no response yet. I'm waiting. Come on, clock is ticking. But it
Exactly.
it it gives us a little bit of at least for me, it gave me a little bit of anxiety, but at the same time, it made me feel like, okay, maybe I need to do something different, or maybe something that is going to work because, like you said, the strategies, you always have to work on the strategies. You have to find out what is working, what is not working, because you have to work around that to, see what the client needs are. That's our priority. But that's really good to know. But as an Indian woman and recently married entrepreneur, have cultural or personal expectations influenced your journey?
Yeah, actually not too much. And I think I really credit like the massive changes that have happened with this generation. Like one, like being in America and like, I think that has made a big difference. I have faced like some conversations where people are like, the vibe is kind of like some aunties will be like, oh, that's cute. That's cute that
Mm.
you're working from home and doing this and
Um,
not taking it seriously. Because for me, like Blur is how I'm gonna get rich. Like Blur is how like this is a big ambition. This is not something I'm trying
yeah.
to do to, use my free time or, oh, this is cute. I'm doing this while my husband's working. No, but I have faced some of that a little bit. Like no one said it directly to me, but sometimes when people will say like, oh, that's nice that you're working from home now, beta. And I'm like, no, no. Like,
And do you think that is because of the age? You are young. Do you think that's one of the reasons they think that way?
I think it's just like, I think it's definitely the older generation a little bit. I don't think it's because I'm young. I think it's like, oh, shadi ho gayi, like now you're just really,
Right, right.
it's like,
Yeah,
no,
that's
no,
what I
no.
meant. Like, with the old,
Yeah.
like the older generations, do they probably think because you're young and you're like, okay, just got married and okay, now this is just your hobby or something, not taking you so seriously.
Yeah.
So,
And I
Undermining.
think,
Yep.
yeah. And I think like the marriage timing may have played into that. It's like we literally got married and I left my corporate job. So from outside looking in, it could look like that, but that's not it.
so how's your support system been though with I know you said Neil has been really supportive. By the way, her husband's name is Neil. But and of course your parents, everything. But do you think that you also have a good, strong support system, or anybody starting a business? I always feel like they need to have a strong support system because, like you said, there are days when we feel like, okay, this is not working, and we really feel like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? But that's the time we need our support. So, do you have a support system for that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it might be a cultural thing too from different generations that I've noticed. I think with the generation right above me, even if things weren't good, you keep it hidden. Like I think you guys talked about in the mental health episode is it's like, hey, everything's good, everything's good. But I think with the friendships that I've developed now, I can be very honest. Like
Mm,
August, I had like no projects, like
mm,
literally nothing. I was empty.
mm,
And I felt very comfortable but vulnerable telling my close friends, like, I don't have anything right now. Things are not good. I'm very down on myself. I feel like I know this is eventually going to work out, but right now I don't feel like I have anything. Can you help me? And like people started reposting my stuff on LinkedIn, just little things, or like, hey,
mm,
let me reach into my network and see if you can at least coffee chat with a few people. And I
mm,
think being vulnerable about like, hey, things are not good in my business right now. I need help. is something that is important, because otherwise people won't know. And, everyone has, at least in the business of marketing, everyone knows somebody that is in need of marketing, even though like my focus is consumer brands. I'm not going to turn away a project this early in my company just because it's not in the industry that I want, right? So
Right.
if I don't tell people I'm looking for projects, there's no way I would get that help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it builds your portfolio too, right? Well, it doesn't matter what project you're getting right now. It's just building your portfolio. It's building your market. And then, you can
That's
slowly find and develop your own market or
yeah,
targeted audience that you want. So,
exactly. And it's
So
good practice too. Oh, sorry. I was just going to finish
that's
my
okay.
it's good practice too, because even if I'm speaking with someone that doesn't end up being a client or a prospect or anything, I can practice at least speaking about myself and speaking about my company. So at the end of the 30-minute Zoom call, hey, it's not a fit, I got one more rep in of, okay, this is how I talk to somebody new.
So Aditi, for someone really on a small scale, starting their business or something like that, do you advise them that they should take marketing consulting, someone like you, or is it an overkill? Because obviously, consulting on marketing early on, it might be very expensive, but is it, how can you justify it, or is it an overkill? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, definitely. I would say if you're at the just idea stage, a lot of the work you can do yourself. And I'm always happy to like mentor and coach, just like, just to have a conversation. And just what I would say is kind of like a recap of what I've been saying, but to more formally structure it, I would look at the competitive set of what we talked about, right? Not just your category, but as the user, if I'm going to use this product or service, what are all my alternatives? I would definitely look at that. I would look at the companies that are doing really well. I would look at your user, and there's some very quick and dirty ways or quick and cheap ways that you can do user research. You don't have to do formal interviews or surveys or anything. If you can, great. If you have the budget, do it. But go on Reddit, search what people are searching for, what they're talking about. Go on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and see what people are talking about.
mm,
Ask your friends if they know people that are using services or products in your category, and get on a 20-minute phone call with them with good questions. And you don't have to offer them money or anything. You'll find that most people are very happy to chat with you. So those are all things that you can do for free before you start. Generally, where you would bring in a consultant is where you have a little bit more budget, you have something in production, you have some revenue and profit. I don't advise going into debt just to do research. So
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
No, that's good. That's good to know. That there are some other alternatives before you reach out to a professional for marketing, and there could be something that you can do, because a lot of time people start their businesses very, very small,
yeah,
one person, especially women, and with culturally, as you said, they could get undermined. So the amount of support or even resources are limited a lot of time.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So Blur specializes in Gen Z and multicultural audience insights. Why do you think understanding these groups is so critical for your brands today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They're both the fastest growing groups, right? So multicultural, the US, I think maybe next year or even now is already majority minority, right? So majority of the population, at least in the urban areas, is multicultural. And within multicultural, we've seen Hispanic marketing have its heyday. I would say majority of brands and services are thinking about marketing to the Hispanic community. But now the Asian American community, or just the South Asian community, you're seeing more and more brands that are at the forefront of that, and majority that have not even tapped into this insight. Like
Mm,
the Desi community has disproportionate buying power. For
okay.
what percentage of the US is Desi? Way more percentage of the money is held by Desi people, right? And we can
Yeah.
understand that anecdotally, but scientifically it's true. And a lot of brands are seeing that. You're seeing brands like Wells Fargo do Diwali campaigns because they want the wealth of, Desi families that to invest in CDs or whatever that Wells Fargo is offering. And that's just one example of many brands that are doing that. And then Gen Z, for those that don't know, are the audience that is approximately born in 1995 to like 2015 maybe. And they are increasingly getting buying power because as this cohort enters the workforce, they're getting good salaries, they're saving money, they're running the economy. So understanding both those audiences is really important. And from my background, that's mostly the type of projects and work that I've worked in my career too. Even for Cheetos, I worked mostly on like the Hispanic, Asian, and Black strategy. At Target, worked a lot on that type of work for the LGBTQ community and the Hispanic community as well. And it's been a passion of mine to make sure that brands are very competent, because it's also clear when it's not competent and you're just doing something, to do it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I have a question that, do you face a lot of competition in the work line you're in? And how do you feel like you have to kind of put it more out there to compete with the people who are in the same,
yeah,
work line?
definitely. Yeah, I would say freelance and consulting work has grown exponentially in the last few years due to multiple factors. I mean, COVID being the number one, and all the other things that happened after that, right? Remote work. Now you can get a consultant. I mean, I'm sitting in Houston. Most of my clients are in New York, LA, and Seattle, right? So, and that is not thanks to COVID, because COVID was terrible, but it is because people are now, down to meet on Zoom and Teams. And because of that, a lot more consultants have entered the workplace, in addition to, the job market being more tough. A lot of brands have returned to office, like all of that. Some things that I have to lean on to really set me apart is, one, finding a niche. So like for anybody not anybody, but I would say for most people that are providing a service, it is very, the immediate, I guess, reaction is to provide a large thing of services and say, I do anything. I can do marketing for anything. I can do any type of marketing or any type of anything. But I found that if you can find a niche and really get good at that, like, hey, I specialize in XYZ, it helps sell yourself better. I found that specializing in consumer brands with the background that I have at Target and PepsiCo has helped set me apart. It also allows me to understand which projects are not the best for me. Living in Houston, most of the companies here are oil and gas and healthcare. But after kind of understanding that field, I've learned, hey, they're not interested in me because I don't have the experience, and I would have to go above and beyond to prove myself, because there's consultants here that actually know energy and healthcare, that it's better if I just kind of stick to what I know, right? So that's one way. Secondly, I have found that people like the strategy bit that I talked about, like not just any type of marketing, but one specific tip of marketing. So it kind of falls into the advice of being in the niche. And then third, making genuine connections. All of my projects have been warm introductions or second degree connections. And that is because I have gone above and beyond in networking, and I try to do 2 to 3 coffee chats per week. And it doesn't have to be real coffee, it could be a Zoom coffee, but yeah, but I have really, really tried to get in front of as many potential customers or potential people in networks I want to be in as much as possible. So even if you don't need me now, maybe you know I exist at the minimum, right?
Or you can always refer to somebody, right? Even if you don't need your services now, I can always refer to somebody saying, hey, I know a person who does this. So
Yeah,
always a
exactly.
good way to do it. But so besides, while you were saying all these things, I was wondering whether service industry or whether product industry is, I would say, more easier to market. I'm sure there's both has their own things, but for as far as your experience goes, do you think that if there's a service industry, it is like, say, for example, I'm a coach, I'm a real estate broker. So for me, it's just my services, right? So is that more easier to market than if I actually had an actual product?
Ooh, that's tough. I feel like it's a two-sided answer. I think from a business perspective, it is definitely easier to start up a services business, right? It's low capital, it's just your brain. You're not, buying inventory and all the things they have to do for a product. I think from the consumer side, just by the pure metric of ticket price, I think a product is generally easier, right? It's easier for someone to spend $15, $20 than generally services are much more than that. So I think it's kind of two-sided. Like if someone was starting a business, it's definitely easier to start a service business because of the startup. But I think it's easier to sell a product because you can mass market it. You can get your product in front of 800 people. And even if only 10% buy, that's pretty good,
Yeah. Yeah, that's still good marketing. 10% is a good return. Okay. So is there any you want to share to our listeners, who are aspiring and entrepreneurs, and what advice would you like to give them about starting and growing their own business? Because I know you're just starting out, but I feel like the first 2 years in the business are the very prime, very important 2 years in any business that you start, because those are the learning points, right? We make mistakes, we learn from them, we grow from them, and we've it's so many ups and downs in the first 2 years. I feel like after 2 years is when we actually start to see ourselves more clearly in our business. But what would you say as to our new aspiring and entrepreneurs according to your experience?
Yeah, I think my number one tip is make the ask. I think that's something that there's two things that are holding Desi women back. One, we're women, right? And women don't make the ask. So my husband works in business development, so essentially sales for a consulting firm, and all his peers or people that he talks to are like old white men. I bring all this up to say that you have to emulate that behavior of it's not okay, like at the end of a call, if you're trying to sell something, to be like, hey, if you think of anything, let me know. No, you have to say, hey, I'd love to work with you. What can I do to get this project? Hey, can you connect me to this person? And when I talk about like the confidence growth that I had like earlier, a big piece of that was just learning how to make the ask. It's a really interesting like anecdotal story, not mine, but something that I had heard is there was a study done, like a psychological study in a grocery store, and there was a long line to check out, and there's a woman holding a child, and she goes to the person in the front and she's holding the child. She's like, hey, can I cut you? And the person in the front says yes 90% of the time. That same, like not different people, but same scenario. Now it's just a man who does not have a baby, and he goes to the person front of line and says, hey, can I cut the line? Do you think that it's like, what percentage do you think say yes?
No.
No.
No,
I
no,
don't think.
90%. The exact same percentage
Are
said
you
yes.
serious? Really?
Yes. And it's because he made the ask.
Oh,
And
wow.
no one makes the ask. And so if you can make the ask, you're already ahead of other people in the same group.
I feel like I felt like because it's the women, I feel more compassionate about that. And so I'm like, yes, the man comes without a baby in his hand. I don't
You're
think
like,
I
no.
would be like,
No,
no, I think you can stand.
but generally that what you're saying, Aditi, you're right. I mean, sometime when you're, if it rarely happens, but it has happened to me that in Costco, like, I just went to grab like a yogurt and I only have one thing. And sure enough, if you ask, people will let you go
Yeah,
straight in the front of the line and
yeah,
say, yeah, go ahead,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
It's
it
like you feel
happens.
like that saying, say you won't get it till you ask for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the same in business, right? Like no matter what you're selling, like hey, can I come be an exhibitor here? Like, there's one thing to say, like, oh, it'd be nice if there were opportunities. Could you let me know? Hey, I want to do this. What are the steps I need to take to do this? Those are two different things,
Mhm.
right? And the person on the other end is going to react more urgently and differently, but based on how you ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
No,
interesting.
that
Yeah.
that that itself shows the confidence in you, your, the approach, because that matters the most when you're dealing with the, if you have heard of, I'm sure you've heard about Grant Cardone, and if you have done his sales pitch, he talks about this, and I think a year and a half ago, I've done his whole sales training. And that's what he says. Like, it depends on he started out as a car salesman, and today he's like the biggest coach. So he just trains people on how to sell anything and everything, because it just matters of how you, like you said, how you're approaching, what you're saying, your words, that matters, because that's what it's going to sell,
Mhm.
whether it's a product or whether it's a service or whatever you're trying to sell. But like, if you're trying to sell a car and you said, oh, what do you think about this? This might work for you. That might word gets into the head more than anything else that you said, and you'd be like, nah, maybe not. But if you said it something differently, that this car absolutely suits you, you should buy this, then it's like, oh yeah, I need to think about this. So it
Yeah.
does matter.
Oh.
So they say that you can sell nothing for anything.
Yeah.
You can sell nothing for anything, means like you wouldn't be giving anything, but you get something. It's just we have to be how persuasive we are and to the
Yeah.
words we choose.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is, the game nowadays. The words words are powerful.
Yeah. I remember, I think Animish, my husband told me a long time back, when there used to be newspaper ads, like, and there was an ad that said that a solar dryer for $10, and there was a PO box and mailing address, and you send your $10 and they'll send you a solar dryer. And and some of one of his uncle had sent it $10, and what he got back was a clothespin and a rope to dry the clothes. So that was a solar dry. Oh, that's brilliant marketing, I would say.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, the other like add on to that same thought though is like your work still has to be really good.
Yeah.
Or your product has to be really good, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this was just for a fun example.
I love that. That's really funny.
But thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey. And I wish you all the best. And I know that you're going to be very successful, and Blur is going to be like the biggest brand. And hopefully one day again, you will come back to us and tell us more of how you became such a successful woman. Right?
Do you want to share your personal info? So that would be a good way to people to reach out to you.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the well wishes. I really, really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And I'm going to manifest that and hope I can come back and tell you how I made my millions doing this.
Yes.
Um, and then, yeah, I mean, check me out. My name is Aditi Bhandari, and my email address is Aditi, Aditi at blurmktg.com. And our website is blurmktg.com. So blurmktg.com.
Perfect. And we'll also add all your information and description in the podcast, under the podcast descriptions. But again, to all our listeners, if you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have a story to share or insights to offer, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us and stay inspired, stay motivated, and remember, the perfect time to start something is when you decide it is. Until next time, take care and keep chasing those dreams. Thank you.
Thank you.